Hello and welcome to the first ever Labour Friends of Kashmir Chairman's Conversations webinar. I'm Gwynne MP and I'm the chair of Labour Friends of Kashmir, a newly established group of parliamentarians, members and supporters from across the British Labour Party and the Labour movement who are committed to finding a peaceful resolution to one of the modern world's longest running but little talked about injustices, the Kashmir issue. Now, we hope in these webinars to interview key players and interested parties in the Kashmir debate to discuss the background to the issue, draw out the different strands of opinion, and hopefully, in future webinars, to debate a way forward to bring sides together. Now, let me express from the outset that Labour Friends of Kashmir is not a voice piece for one side of the debate. Fundamentally, we are drawn from across the Labour family. Our members hold different views on the sovereignty issue. Many have heritage from one side of the line of control or another. In these webinars, we will challenge all these differences, and we'll be having guests from all sides of the Kashmir debate and from India too. But we also want these webinars not just to be an interview with special guests, but to be an interactive forum. Please put your questions to LFK via the methods shown on the screen, and I'll put some of them to our guest later. Now, today is International Human Rights Day, and you cannot have a discussion about modern Kashmir without recognising violations on human rights and the need for the international community to speak out about those human rights abuses. Rest assured, I'll touch on those in my interview. But now for our first special guest, Sardar Masood Khan, who is currently serving as the 27th President of Azad, Jammu and Kashmir, a position he assumed on the 25th of August 2016. Immediately before becoming the President, he was the Director General of the Institute of Strategic Studies in Islamabad. He has also had a long diplomatic career with the Foreign Service of Pakistan. Most notably, he served as the spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs between 2003 and 2005. As Pakistan's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organisations based in Geneva between 2005 and 2008. As Pakistan's ambassador to China between 2008 and 2012, and as Pakistan's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations headquarters based in New York between 2012 and 2015. He's also held important diplomatic positions in the Netherlands and in the USA based in Washington, DC. And if that wasn't enough of a distinguished CV, over the years, he's also held leadership positions in the international community, which include President of the Conference on Disarmament, as President of the Biological Weapons Review Conference in 2006, as President of the governmental group of the International Labour Organization, the ILO, as Chairman of the ILO Reform Committee, as Chairman of the Council of the International Organization for Migration, as Chairman of the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation in Geneva, and indeed as Chairman of the Group of 77 and China. Live from Islamabad, President Masood Khan, welcome to the first LFK Chairman's Conversation webinar. President Masood Khan, good evening from Manchester.
Good evening, and thank you so much for opening this window and launching this platform.
Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Now, Mr. President, you can't begin to tell the story of modern Kashmir without going back to 1947 and the Indian Independence Act, an act of the British Parliament. Now, we're both fortunate to know the contemporary history of Kashmir, whose status, of course, was as a princely state within British India, which, unlike the areas of direct British rule, retained its legal sovereignty, as indeed did all the princely states, whilst being represented for foreign affairs and overseas purposes by the British Empire. I think it's something that's often lost on a British audience, that British India was not a single homogenous entity, and upon granting independence to the two new dominions of India and Pakistan, it was initially only the areas of direct rule which were transferred into the new countries. The princely states, of course, could opt to join either dominion if they so wished, or retain their own independent sovereignty. Can I ask you in opening, does it surprise you that there is a blissful ignorance, if I can put it that way, here in Britain of our fairly recent past? And do you think that the lack of knowledge of either how British India was governed or indeed how it was granted independence is part of the challenge that we have here in the United Kingdom of telling the story of Kashmir?
Well, yes, I agree with you that there's little awareness about the history of Jammu and Kashmir. But let me also go back to 1947 and tell you that at that time, the people of Jammu and Kashmir were given two choices: to join India or Pakistan, according to the Independence Act. The majority of the people in the Jammu and Kashmir state at that time, they wanted to join Pakistan, they wanted to accede to Pakistan. But the ruler of the state was Maharaja Hari Singh, a Hindu, who wanted to join India or remain independent. There was another Kashmiri leader whose name was Sheikh Abdullah, a prominent Kashmiri leader. He wanted to join India. And therefore, the will of the people of Kashmir at that time was repulsed. And that created a conflict in the region. Later on, India took this issue to the United Nations Security Council. And at that time, the United Nations Security Council, in half a dozen resolutions, which were passed between 1948 and 1957, decided that the people of Jammu and Kashmir would decide their own political future through a referendum which would be supervised by the United Nations. That is the crux of the matter. Now, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan, and the United Nations are ready for that referendum even up to this day. But India, at some point, after agreeing to a plebiscite on Jammu and Kashmir, decided to annex the territory of Jammu and Kashmir and indulge in what can be called constitutional occupation. Constitutional, because they said that they wrote this in their constitution, that the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir was an integral part of India. And that has created a big complication. The second dimension is that this occupied territory, one part, one big chunk of the territory and its population has been with India for the past 73 years. And the Indian occupiers have used all sorts of methods to either win hearts and minds of the people, or forcibly annex them to their state, or use brutal force to intimidate them, to subjugate them, and to bludgeon them into submission. They've also tried to demonize the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that they are terrorists, that they're Muslim extremists. And they have also tried to equate the freedom movement in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir as terrorism, because this narrative of terrorism was selling better in the international community. Nothing has worked for them. You know, Kashmiris were chanting these slogans of freedom in 1947, and in today's Kashmir, today's occupied territory, in towns and streets and squares, everywhere, people are raising these slogans of freedom, and they're saying, go India, go back. So that's the sad reality for the people of... Now, your question was about the awareness level, and I have already responded to that, that it's rather low, but and the dynamic and active approach taken by the United Kingdom, its all-party parliamentary Kashmir group, and now these caucuses in the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, they are creating a new threshold for not only advocacy, but also awareness raising about the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in the United Kingdom and across Europe, and hopefully across the Western world.
And we'll come on to those issues, Mr. President. Of course, the way that Britain left the Raj and the subsequent way Kashmir was subsumed into the dominion of India in part at the behest of the ruler, but without any reference to the people, is the root cause, as you say, of the division and conflict. The UN, as you referred to, has been involved in this issue from the start. It's demanded peace, it's demanded dialogue and plebiscites to determine the future status of Kashmir. Can I ask you, do you think the UN has failed in its mission?
Yes, the United Nations has failed in its mission, but it was not only the United Nations mission. It was a mission of the members of the United Nations, particularly the permanent members. And we're talking about the United States, United Kingdom, France, Russian Federation, China, because they're the ones who call the shots. I represented Pakistan in the Security Council in 2012 and 2013, and I know the dynamics of the Security Council, which is the apex body of the United Nations. If they wanted, if the world powers, the veto-wielding powers wanted, they would have held the plebiscite, the mandated plebiscite, India's objections or reservations notwithstanding. Or alternatively, if India was saying that it had not agreed to the decision of a plebiscite, then they should have continued their diplomacy, multilateral diplomacy, under Chapter 6 of the United Nations Charter. And if this didn't work, they should have moved to Chapter 7. But they should not have ceased diplomatic effort within the forum of the United Nations Security Council.
And you mentioned rightly the involvement of the permanent members of the Security Council, Mr. President. Given the rising importance of India regionally and on the international stage, and indeed China's involvement in regional boundary disputes, do you still see a way through for dialogue and a roadmap for a peaceful settlement?
Well, yes, I would say we always remain hopeful. And let me tell you that we're grateful to China. I mean, the people of Jammu and Kashmir in Pakistan are grateful to China because last year, when India illegally occupied the territory and annexed it to its federation, at that time, China facilitated Pakistan to raise the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in the Security Council. And after a gap of 50 years, the issue was discussed last year and also this year. It has been discussed 3 times. So China's role in that context has been constructive. We're also grateful to other permanent members of the United Nations Security Council because they also did not block this discussion, although this discussion on Kashmir was held in an informal setting. Your question, your stark question, direct question is whether the United Nations Security Council has failed and whether there is a possibility of a peaceful solution. I think that's, let me underline that that's why the United Nations was created, because they wanted to save the world from the scourge of war. So an alternative to a peaceful solution, a diplomatic solution, is war. And if a war breaks out between India and Pakistan, along the line of control or across the international border, it would lead to a nuclear Armageddon. And that should be avoided. So United Nations should invest its political will in quest of a diplomatic solution. It should do so earnestly. Otherwise, this is a tinderbox. This is a flashpoint in Kashmir. And, if a nuclear war starts here, it would affect not only South Asia, but the rest of the world also, in terms of refugee outflows, in terms of nuclear fallout, and the economies of the world would be devastated. So this is, I'm not painting a doomsday scenario. I'm in fact projecting a realistic picture of what would happen if this issue remains unresolved, because India and Pakistan both are nuclear armed states, and the equilibrium is very delicate between the 2 states. Both have conventional forces and nuclear forces, and they have credible deterrence, but deterrence might fail, and there could be an open conflict between the two countries, which would be devastating for the region and the entire world.
It absolutely would, and hopefully we can avoid that and get a peaceful settlement to this long drawn out conflict. Can I ask on the issue of the United Nations demands for a plebiscite on the issue, do you support that? And perhaps it's a difficult question for you to answer, but what is your view, Mr. President, on what the future status of Kashmir should be?
You know, like the Independence Act of 1947, the United Nations Security Council, these 12 resolutions, they also give only two options: to join India or to join Pakistan. You know, the third dimension or the third option of independence has not been given in the United Nations Security Council. I mean, I'm presenting to you the essence of the UN Security Council resolutions. We adhere to the solution given by the United Nations Security Council, these resolutions. So, but the significance of these resolutions is that they recognize the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and they leave the choice to the people of Jammu and Kashmir and recognize them as the key pivotal constituents. I mean, there are three parties to the dispute. It is Pakistan. These three parties are Pakistan, India, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. But the people of the Jammu and Kashmir have to decide and determine their political future and their political persona. So what should be the solution? Of course, I would say that we subscribe to the accession to Pakistan solution. You know, the people of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, they fought a war of independence back in 1947. And their primary purpose was to become part of Pakistan. In fact, I would say that the majority of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir state would have joined Pakistan in 1947. I mean, the entire state would have joined Pakistan had their wish, their will not been crushed by India. You know, India and the Maharaja of Kashmir, Lord Mountbatten also to some extent, they conspired and manipulated, and they facilitated in India's invasion of the territory and its occupation. And that occupation is the root cause of the turbulence in Kashmir. That root cause has to be removed, and we will find a democratic solution. We would leave it ultimately to the will of the Kashmiri people, because they're the ones who have to decide about their own political future.
Thank you. And of course, we've touched a lot on the history of the end of empire and Britain's role in the subcontinent. Looking to the future, though, Mr. President, do you think that Britain has a role to play, in your view, in brokering a way forward for Pakistan, India, and Kashmiris to enter that meaningful dialogue on the issue? Can Britain be an honest broker, given our history in the region?
Yes, I think that the United Kingdom, its diplomats, its parliamentarians, they know the region well. There is 1 million strong diaspora community, which is either of Kashmiri extraction or Pakistani extraction. So the United Kingdom has a special role in this regard. It has, in fact, multiple roles that it can play. First is the parliament, because you have constituents who are Kashmiri constituents, and outside Kashmir, outside the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the biggest population of diaspora is in the United Kingdom of Kashmiris. So second, parliamentarians have a special responsibility, and we're grateful to the United Kingdom Parliament, House of Commons and House of Lords, which have been campaigning for the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They've also been campaigning for an end to the atrocities in the territory, occupied territory, also end to human rights violations, and now the slow-moving genocide that has taken place in the territory. So we're grateful to the parliament. But in fact, we also appeal to the United Kingdom as a state and its government to play its role in the United Nations Security Council. United Kingdom is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and it has an influential role within the council. No decision is taken without the consent of the United Nations permanent representative. You are consulted on all issues impinging on peace and security. So I think that there, instead of playing a passive role, the United Kingdom and its permanent delegation could play a proactive role. You are also the driving force behind Commonwealth, this family of the nations which were associated with the United Kingdom in the past century and before that. So I think that that too is a kind of parliament of the people, and that could also generate pressure or mobilize opinion for an end to repression, end to genocide, end to state terrorism in the occupied territory, and exercise of the right to self-determination by the people of Jammu and Kashmir through democratic means. So you have multiple roles, but I would pin my hopes on the parliamentarians and their constituents across the United Kingdom, because if they build critical pressure, we could get response from the United Nations Security Council and also from India, because now India gets scot-free. It is not accountable to any forum, any community, any court of law, international court of law. It is, in fact, enjoying absolute impunity from any kind of accountability and prosecution for its crimes against humanity and for its crime of genocide that it's committing day in and day out in the occupied territory.
Thank you. And of course, we can't have, very sadly, a discussion on Kashmir without talking about the ongoing situation in Indian-administered Kashmir, where the civilian population has been under lockdown and many basic rights denied since mid-2019. What are the reports that you're getting, very briefly, from the other side of the line of control?
Horrid, horrible, and horrendous. You know, the situation is appalling. I don't have the words to describe the situation. This is despite the communication blockade. This is despite the siege that has been imposed on the people of Jammu and Kashmir for the past 16 months. There are 900,000 troops which are stationed in the occupied territory who are brutalizing the people of Jammu and Kashmir. There's this colonial executive outfit which is exercising the will on behalf of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It is making decisions for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It is an unrepresentative body. Can you imagine that a lieutenant governor appointed by Delhi is making all decisions on behalf of the people of the occupied territory? And there's a secretary or a principal secretary or a chief secretary who's taking all the decisions. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir have been totally disenfranchised. And now they are being dispossessed. As a matter of fact, I mean, their land, their homeland are being stolen from them. And I'll tell you how. Because India is has brought in fact, 2.2 million Hindus from all over India to illegally settle them in the occupied territory. The purpose here is to change the demographic composition of the territory. As I mentioned earlier, that they tried everything in their repertoire to legally annex the territory, but they failed because this was an unnatural union, and this was a forced union, and therefore now they have decided, after using brutalization, after using all sorts of blandishments and these attractions, now what they have done is that they want to change the nation itself. This is
on particular issue, of course, you're, I think, about to come on to the fact that the Indian government has changed the legal status of Kashmir within the constitutional framework of the Republic of India. Do you see that action as irreversible? Is it a blockage to peaceful dialogue, or is it something that can be worked round by the two sides?
Well, no, it's not. The issue of Jammu and Kashmir is not an internal problem. In fact, as I said, that this was constitutional occupationalism, which they exercised. I mean, by simply writing in their constitution that this territory and the people of this territory are part of India, doesn't substantiate that these people do belong to India. Their occupation of the territory was illegal in the first place. But now they have also done away with its disputed status. So another violation of international law, because the future of this territory had yet to be decided. So I would say that this Article 370 was an empty shell. There was nothing in it. I mean, it was eviscerated by the time it was annulled. What was significant was Article 35A, which recognized four special rights granted to the people of Jammu and Kashmir even before the creation of India and Pakistan. And these four rights were acquisition of property, special privileges in regard to education and employment, and a series of other special rights that were given to them. Now, I would say that this has opened the doors for illegal settlers. This is settler colonialism that is taking place. And that's not all. To accomplish this goal, they kill people. They kill Kashmiris every day. Dozen Kashmiris, particularly young men, are killed every day. Last year, I don't know whether you recall, but some Indian human rights organizations had collected data very meticulously and studiously, which simply said that more than 13,000 young boys had been detained. Some of them were as young as 9, 10, and 11, children, as a matter of fact. And they've been put into concentration camps or in prisons, notorious prisons in northern India or some parts of Kashmir, and they're being tortured there. These instances of torture have been reported by the BBC and other international media networks. So what I'm saying is that it's not just the occupation of the territory, settler colonialism. It's also massacres and killings and destroying the economy of the territory. Let me also tell you that lately the Indian troops are in fact attacking these habitats of nomads, 1.1 million Gujars or Bakarwals, as they are called in local language. Their high altitude hutments are being destroyed because they want to build illegal settlements there. And so they are depriving Kashmiris of their economic rights under the pretext of protection of environment. And these nomads have been living in those habitats for centuries, as a matter of fact. So what I want to say is that your question was about a restoration of Article 370. And if we talk about Article 370, it's an internal problem. It was an internal instrument to subjugate the people of Jammu and Kashmir against their will. But the issue is international. It is not a bilateral issue. It's not an internal issue. It's an international, which was presented before the United Nations Security Council. It has to have a multilateral solution and a multilateral dispensation.
Thank you. And of course, it's International Human Rights Day today. The UN, as you've rightly pointed out, has time and time again highlighted and reported on some quite serious breaches of basic human rights in Indian administered Kashmir. Why do you think, very briefly, why do you think very little has been done to stop it?
Well, we're grateful to the United Nations Human Rights Council, particularly its High Commissioner, former High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mr. Zaid Radul Hussain, who published two reports. One was published in 2018, the second in 2019, which highlighted gross and consistent violations of human rights in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And the reports had asked the Human Rights Council to constitute a commission of inquiry. That recommendation has not been implemented by the Council. United Nations, as a matter of fact, is dealing with the secondary and tertiary issues. It is not dealing with issues which really matter, which really impinge on peace and security. I mean, we have seen this trend because the leader of the United Nations or of the New World Order, which was always considered to be the United States, has abandoned its leadership. You know, the world order that was put together in the aftermath of the Second World War, it is unraveling. And you see that, I mean, because the champions and the custodians of human rights and human rights law are exercising or demonstrating double standards. So that's a very, I mean, there's one standard for one country, another standard for the people like the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So that's why the United Nations has done too little. Now, you know, yesterday, 9th of December is the day when you mark the adoption of the convention, 1948 convention to prevent genocide. Today, of course, is the day we call the United Nations International Human Rights Day, or we celebrate or mark the proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But I have said in my messages that these documents are empty rhetoric or just non-living documents if we do not really move swiftly to the places, to the hotspots and flashpoints where real genocides are taking place. And Kashmir is that place today where a real genocide is taking place, not a theoretical genocide. And I choose the word genocide deliberately and carefully, and after doing the requisite research, that if you look at all the multiple activities that are going on there, despite India's spiel and spin, it is genocide in the ugliest form imaginable. So yes, the United Nations has done little, and it is because of realpolitik. It is because of its non-adherence to the values and principles that it proclaims.
Very, very simple question, Mr. President. Yes or no answer will suffice. Has diplomacy failed the Kashmiri people? I don't know whether you heard that or, but I think we've lost the link, rather unfortunately. Let's see if we can get the president back. If not, then I'm afraid I'm not able to put people's questions that have come in. So if I can thank you for submitting your questions. It seems that the interview has had to... Have we got you back, Mr. President?
Yes.
Yes.
We are connected again.
I don't know if you heard my question, but I was just asking for a very quick yes or no answer, whether you thought diplomacy had failed the Kashmiri people. Diplomacy
never fails, but diplomacy needs to be intensified. So far, diplomacy has failed.
Okay. Will you condemn abuses of against human rights wherever they occur?
Yes, I would.
So, of course, there have been reports of human rights abuses in Pakistan-administered Kashmir too. Do you recognise those complaints?
Yes, I do. And I would like to add that the scale is entirely different. When we talk about the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, we are talking about massacres, genocide, killings, blindings, rape as an instrument of war, fake encounters, enforced disappearances, and as I said, there's some mass migration of people to change the demography of the region. In Azad Kashmir territory, it is a developing region like the rest of the developing countries in the world, and we're working on empowerment of women, gender parity, education, health. We have challenges in these areas. We have covered some ground. We have a long way to go. And I would not say that Azad Kashmir, the territory of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, is a paragon of perfection. But at the same time, I would say that you come to Azad Kashmir, visit Muzaffarabad and other parts of Azad Kashmir, you would not see concertina wires in the streets or barricades, steel barricades, or armed troops, armed forces patrolling down the streets. So the scale is different. And we can't compare Azad Kashmir. Azad Kashmir means free Kashmir. It's free Kashmir. On the other side, you have an occupied territory. For God's sake, their territory is the most brutalized territory in the world.
And of course, human rights are undeniable and are a basic and fundamental right for all humanity wherever people are. And whilst I accept that there can be different scales of abuses, and abuse against human rights is an abuse against human rights. So what discussion have you had as the president with both the UN and the Pakistan government about putting right human rights abuses in Azad Kashmir?
Well, you see, I haven't accepted the premise, because when you say that human rights abuses in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, primarily we are talking about the promotion and protection of human rights, which are universal. And wherever we find human rights abuses, we have to eliminate them. And it's not the responsibility of the government of Pakistan or the United Nations. Primarily, it is our responsibility. It is the responsibility of the people of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And we have guidelines from the United Nations. And these two reports that I mentioned, they also underline some of the human rights abuses, quote unquote abuses, in the Azad Jammu and Kashmir territory, or the state of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And I would say that we are ready to enter into a dialogue with them. And in fact, remove some of the misgivings that they have. I before coming to your program, I read the two reports, and I found that there was some gaps. Either there was some anecdotal information, or some parts of criticism had been picked up from other reports. So we can have direct dialogue on them and clarify some of the points that have been raised in those two reports, in the United Nations reports. At the same time, I would say that I'm not claiming that we do not have any human rights problems at all. What I'm saying is that we are striving to resolve these issues and empower our entire civil society. And with their active collaboration, with the active collaboration and cooperation of all actors of civil society.
Thank you very much, President Masood Khan. I know we had a slight technical glitch towards the end, but now, if I may, I'd like to bring in some of the questions that we have received online. I think some of them are directly for yourself. Some are about Labour Friends of Kashmir and our work, which I'll be able to answer as well. So, Wasim, if you can maybe bring up the first question. And hopefully the technology will work and the question will appear in due course. And I've only got a message saying, can you see it? I have a question for me about Keir's statement and about Keir Starmer, obviously leader of the Labour Party, and there was a statement earlier in the year about the Kashmir issue being a bilateral issue for India and Pakistan. And of course, Labour Friends of Kashmir have now had dialogue with Keir Starmer, with Lisa Nandy, the shadow foreign secretary, and it's very clear that the leadership of the Labour Party recognised that actually the Kashmir issue is an international issue. It's something that is for the people of Kashmir, as well as for the governments of Pakistan and India to decide. And ultimately, self-determination is what it says on the tin. It is about the rights of the people to decide by whom they are governed and how they are governed. And what's very encouraging as well, Mr. President, is that the leadership, the new leadership of the Labour Party, is very keen to work directly with Labour Friends of Kashmir to have regular meetings and updates, and also to ensure that there is a commitment there to work around policy with the shadow foreign office team as well. So I hope that that's answered the question that's come in there. There is another question that perhaps we can have a perspective from you, Mr. President, from Azad, Jammu and Kashmir, and that is, why do you think that the UK isn't putting any pressure on the UN to resolve this issue?
In fact, I saw this question on the screen, but I think that you're in a better position to respond to this question. Let me comment on it. I think that the United Kingdom has very close ties with India, economic and strategic, and it follows the lead of the United States in regard to such issues. It's a close ally of the United States. And it doesn't matter whether the administration in the United States is Democratic or Republican. There is this high degree of unanimity between the two sides. So because somehow they feel the United Kingdom government is tight-lipped because of its close ties with India. And after Brexit, the United Kingdom is feeling that it has become quite vulnerable. It has to invest in India. It has to have robust economic and commercial ties with India. They find Indian market very lucrative, and they think that India would do a marvelous job in stopping China from becoming a global power. I mean, these are some of the factors that I can count. But I think that this is what really constrains the government. But this doesn't constrain the parliamentarians. All-party parliamentary Kashmir group has, cross-party Kashmir group has, in fact, a 67 member, or more than 70 members, I would say. I don't have the precise figure with me. And I was being told that you have more than 100 members. Mr. Wasim Zafar was telling me that you have more than 100 members of Labour Friends of Kashmir group. So I would say that this pressure from the parliamentarians and from the citizens, British citizens, can persuade the UK government, 10 Downing Street, and Foreign Secretary to instruct their delegation in the United Nations Security Council to play a proactive role there.
Thank you. Another question that we've got, somebody's asked, the President has said that in the UN there are only two options for Kashmir, either with Pakistan or with India. What about an independent Kashmir, if that's what the people want?
There are two things which must be kept in mind. One is that right from 1947, there's some percentage of people who have been advocating independence. And the two big names are the Maharaja of Kashmir himself, who wanted to remain independent. He wanted to join neither India nor Pakistan. And then there was the this very popular leader of Jammu and Kashmir, a populist and popular leader, Sheikh Abdullah, who later on decided to join India. But his basic inclination was for independence. And even after joining India, he tried many times to seek a greater degree of autonomy or ultimately independence, but he failed miserably. Now, the other fact is that an overwhelming majority has been aspiring to join Pakistan. I mean, and that cannot be that sentiment, that groundswell of support for Pakistan in the occupied territory and in Azad Kashmir cannot be swept aside simply because there's a pro-independence element. Now, the question asked here is that what about independence as an option? I mean, if this demand is more popular, then one will have to go back to the Security Council and have the resolution changed there. Let me also, this is a very, very sensitive question. Let me answer it as candidly as possible, because on the Pakistani side and in Azad Kashmir, there's a higher threshold for tolerance in regard to pro-independence elements. Whereas in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the JKLF, Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, that party has been banned, and their leader, Mr. Yasin Malik, whom we recognize as a leader, as part of the three important leaders. There's an alliance of three leaders, a triumvirate that we recognize. He's in Tihar jail, and he's in a death cell, as a matter of fact. Whereas here, on our side, I mean, pro-independence elements can address bars. They can also go to the press clubs. They are active in many civil society organizations. So a democratic solution is the only solution to this question. I remember that once Mr. Yasin Malik, the pro-independence leader, was in Washington, and he was asked the same question. And he said, first implement the UN Security Council resolutions as they exist and leave it to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They would decide their own future democratically. Let me also tell you that while India has blatantly and brazenly declared that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India and it's part of their federation, Pakistan has written in its constitution, Article 257, that first the people of Jammu and Kashmir would decide their own political future in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions, and then the relationship between Jammu and Kashmir state and Pakistan would be determined. This was my paraphrase of the article, not the exact words. So what I want to say is that it's a complex question. It can be resolved, but for me, some of these questions are legal questions and questions related to the resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. I don't see any resolution in the near future. In the meantime, Kashmiris are being killed. There's a genocide going on in the territory. Every day, a dozen to 20 young men are gunned down. And as I said, the Kashmiris' land is being stolen from them. Their resources, their economy is being stolen from them. The kind of cruelty that we saw in the interwar period in Germany or in the occupied territories like Hungary and Poland, or Hitler's treatment towards the Jews during the Second World War and before that, that kind of Nazism is now unfolding in the occupied territory. So that must be stopped. The house of Kashmir is on fire, and we have to first bring this fire under control and then talk about resolution of the dispute. We can also talk about the resolution of the dispute simultaneously. But first things first save Kashmiri lives.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your forthright views in answering that question. I've got two other questions that I think are for me as chair of Labour Friends of Kashmir. One is LFK willing to work with other political parties to campaign for a peaceful resolution in Kashmir and South Asia, including the British Conservative Party? The answer is yes. We will work with the all-party group. We will work with caucuses in other British mainstream political parties. We will work across party, and we will ensure that there is a voice in the British Parliament and in mainstream politics for the Kashmir issue. That's the whole purpose for establishing Labour Friends of Kashmir, specifically within the Labour Party. Somebody else has asked, why isn't there a representative of Indian occupied Kashmir discussing human rights violations on this programme? Let me make it very clear, as I did from the outset, that we will invite people from all political persuasions and perspectives on the Kashmir issue, including people from India, in future programmes. And we want to make it clear that we don't represent one particular view or another. We want to ensure there is a dialogue across the spectrum of opinions relating to Kashmir, and we want to hear and respect all views and to challenge all views as well. I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid we've slightly overrun, mainly because of a technical glitch. I hope that didn't put too many people off. Our time has ended. I'd like to really thank you, Mr. President, for being with us on the first LFK Chairman's Conversation webinar. It was very kind of you to give up such a long period of time. I know it's late back in Pakistan, and we are really grateful to you. I'd also like to thank my team, especially Wasim Zafar and Wajid.
Can I have a minute? Can I have a minute?
Just hold on, for making it happen. I hope you, the viewers, have also enjoyed it. I'll let Mr. President have a final few words, but we are restricted for time. But please do, Mr. President.
Well, I salute your leadership. As a matter of fact, I mean, I didn't have an opportunity to thank you for what you've been doing over the years. And yours is a very loud and clear voice in support of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I've seen you in many places, in Muzaffarabad, in Islamabad, in fact, United Kingdom, different places, House of Commons. And you have been a passionate campaigner for the rights of the Kashmiris. I also recall that you protested when there was a slight ambiguity in regard to Labour Party's position on Kashmir once Mr. Keir Starmer assumed leadership. And you had that lacuna removed. You had that position restored, the Labour Party's traditional policy. So I thank you for that. Not only that, you're the driving force behind this Labour Friends of Kashmir group. And we feel empowered because of your dynamic leadership. And when you speak with conviction, with clarity, and that in this dark hour, the people of Jammu and Kashmir appreciate your heroic efforts. And once again, I salute you for your contribution and the contribution being made by your friends and admirers across the United Kingdom, across the world.
Thank you, Mr. President. And, it is my pleasure to ensure that the Labour Party always maintains a balanced opinion on the issue of Kashmir. Labour Friends of Kashmir, as I've said, will be working and very closely with the Labour leadership, Sir Keir Starmer as our leader, Lisa Nandy as the Shadow Foreign Secretary, to maintain our policy work and to ensure that there is always a balance in these issues, and fundamentally that we remain pro-human rights. The Labour Party is a pro-human rights party. Please keep tuned for our next programme featuring the chairman of the Kashmir Committee for Pakistan, Sardar Khan Afridi, a member of the National Assembly and Government Minister. That will be on Wednesday, the 16th of December at 6:30 p.m, live streamed on the LFK YouTube and Facebook accounts. And from me, Andrew Gwynne, in Manchester, and from the whole at Labour Friends of Kashmir, good night and thank you for watching.